Hello there everybody, this is JBro63.9 and I know it's been a while, but welcome back to the GPC Round 2. I'm a bit late with this upload because I have been incredibly busy recently, but that is not important. So, also if you hear sniffling or clinking, the sniffling is my allergies and the clinking, as you can hear there, is a glass of grapefruit juice. So, I need my vitamin C. That's enough about that, though. So, the previous week, week 2, I faced off against the Texas Savage Tauros and Heracroshot, its coach. And I have to say, with this week, I was scared, and rightfully so. He has a lot of dangerous stuff on his team that can destroy me, a lot of stuff that I don't have much to counter with, and he always had the team advantage for this battle, but I'm not going to spoil the ending. Needless to say, it was an interesting bout, but I ended up picking a few of my team members to counter his. So, I predicted that he would end up bringing Aegislash, Mega Gallade, Rhyperior, Latios, Florges, and either Crobat or Manaphy. I wasn't sure, but I knew that he would want some switch initiative and some sort of special sweepers and a physical sweeper, because he's got all the sweeping power he needs. Needless to say, he did bring most of those. However, I falsely predicted a few things. Well, actually only one thing. I predicted he wouldn't bring his Roserade due to the fact I have a lot of things that can take out his Roserade, but he ended up bringing Roserade anyway, which was surprising. He was scared of my Mega Scizor, and I was incredibly scared of the Aegislash and Mega Gallade, and that's kind of what hindered me this entire fight. But I ended up bringing, for this battle anyway, I ended up bringing Oddjob the Drapion, Y2K the Rotom Mow, Soul the Volcarona, His Ancientness the Amistar, Edward Scissorhands the Scizor, Mega Scizor, and Muscle Man the Conkeldurr. The team worked out for the most part, but you're gonna see what happens in this battle. It's pretty insane. So, he ended up bringing quite a dangerous team, I have to say. I predicted the Latios. He ended up bringing Roserade instead. He did end up bringing Manaphy and Crobat, which was a bit horrifying, considering he had so much dangerous power on the team. So, I needed a way to get around it. So, I tried to, but it didn't quite work in my favor. However, enough intro. Let's get into the battle. So, I lead off after a friendly exchange, because he's very competitive like that. With a friendly exchange, I decide to lead off with Rotom Mow, and he leads with his Crobat. Now, Crobat's an issue immediately, so what I try to do is I go for Trick, and I try to trick my Choice Scarf from my Rotom onto the Crobat. However, what ends up happening is he switches into Roserade and gives me the Black Sludge. So now Rotom has a Black Sludge and Roserade has a Choice Scarf. It's not going to help either one of us, so what I'm going to do is, thinking that Roserade won't have a HP Fire or anything of the sort, I switch into Edward. And I'm thinking, okay, if I get Edward in there early, I can easily find a way to take out this Roserade, because I have Aerial Ace on my Scizor. At the moment, I had a Scizor with Aerial Ace, Bug Bite, Bullet Punch, and Defog. Not the greatest set, I know, but I really wanted a way to get as much coverage as I could out of Edward, because he is a fantastic physical attacker. Unfortunately, the lack of Swords Dance and recovery didn't help me too much in the end, but you're going to see what happens. So, he goes for Toxic Spikes, putting a layer of spikes around my feet. I'm not sure why, considering I have a Poison type that can absorb that immediately, and a Defogger, but whatever. He withdraws Roserade the next turn and goes into Rhyperior, as I Mega Evolve, and I go for Aerial Ace, predicting him to stay in, possibly to go for an HP Fire, because I set my EVs up in such a way where I knew I could easily take an HP Fire from Roserade or Manaphy on the off chance that he brought either one. Now, The aerial ace doesn't do much, but the next turn what I end up doing is going for Bullet Punch, which only does 30%, but considering that I just Mega Evolved and have no boost, that's pretty good on a max defense Rhyperior. He goes for Stealth Rock, so he's getting up a lot of hazards. So what I do is I go for Defog on the next turn, and he goes for Arrest, so that reveals that his Rhyperior has insane recovery right away. It doesn't have the leftovers, but it does have Rest, and a Chesto Berry, so he immediately wakes up from that. I'm surprised he already went for the Resto Chesto, considering he still had plenty of health left on that thing, but I switch out as he goes for a Fire Punch, so that's another big move that he just revealed to me. He revealed that he has the capability to take out my Scizor as long as I'm pretty well versed in my physical defense, and thankfully I am, because Mega Scizor is incredibly bulky. I don't need to worry about defense at all. Yeah, I had to take a drink. So, Scizor, I switch him out, because that Fire Punch, I go into Amistar, thinking, okay, well I can take this guy out the next turn with anything he goes for, I can take any hit, and he goes for Fire Punch, which boosts my speed and lowers my defense because I have weak armor. So it helps in the end. I restore a little bit of my leftovers, I'm back at full health, and he switches out his Rhyperior and goes into his Manaphy. So at this rate, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do, so I go for a Stealth Rock on the off chance he's going to switch, and I did predict that correctly, so the Stealth Rocks are up. I don't think he has a Defogger. I'm pretty sure that Crobat didn't know Defog. So that was a great thing to have up that early. But instead of having Tail Glow like I expected, he goes for Calm Mind on the Manaphy. This scares me as I go into Rotom-Mow because I know that Manaphy can learn Ice Beam. Y2K is my special wall, but what I try to do here is I go for a trick. I'm trying to get rid of this black sludge that's going to hinder me immensely, and he goes back into his Roserade, so an amazing prediction on his part. Although to be fair, I think it would have been even better if I went for a Volt Switch and went right back out into Edward at that point, but regardless, it worked out for both of us. We both got back our original items, and I go into Reptar. He goes for another layer of Toxic Spikes, just really insistent on getting up those Toxic Spikes. I'm not sure what he was going for there, but considering that my Conkeldurr has Guts, it didn't really matter to me. So I go for an insanely strong Eruption, which gets a critical hit and like immediately destroys Roserade. So he switches in Manaphy, and I go out into Conkeldurr, giving myself a free Guts boost. Which is fantastic. As he sets up the rain, this is horrifying. I know this guy had the rain for a reason. I know he had Manaphy for a reason. I didn't expect the rain, because this rain is going to make Aegislash a total pain to deal with. But regardless, I go for a knockoff, as he goes for a Calm Mind, and I get rid of Manaphy's leftovers, so that's at least one step out of the equation. Unfortunately, because Manaphy has Hydration, he goes for Rest and immediately recovers all of his health and wakes up, and at the end of the turn, it's a nightmare. So I just go for a Drain Punch, predicting him to either switch out or to stay in and use something else against me, because I know he can't O-kill Muscle Man at this rate. Unfortunately, he does switch right back out and goes into Crobat, as I go for a Drain Punch, predicting him to stay in. I don't know what exactly I was thinking at that point, but I was really nervous with this game. I was not at my best at all, and you'll see that in the remaining plays. So I pull out Muscle Man and I go into Odd Job as I absorb the Toxic Spikes, and Crobat here is going to go for Brave Bird, which is going to do a lot of damage, but not a ton, only 29%. This is a mostly defensive Drapion, something I don't normally do, but it does have 2 attacks, so I think, okay, maybe I could try to get a sweep going, completely forgetting that Crobat can learn Taunt. So I go for Swords Dance, and he gets off the Taunt, which is a nightmare for me, but not a huge nightmare in the end. I just go for a Crunch the next turn. I didn't really want too many knockoff users, and in the end, I probably should have had knockoff of a Crunch on Odd Job, but it doesn't matter at this rate. So he goes for a Roost, I go for a Crunch. He's only down to 75%, so I decide the next turn I'm just going to go right back out to Edward, and he makes another really good play and U-turns out of there back into the Rhyperior. So he is really insistent on just fire punching Edward to death. I'm not really sure why he's doing this, but I'm predicting him here. Okay, well, I can take a physical hit. I'm going to see what he wants to do, and he goes for Earthquake on the next turn, which really brings down Muscle Man to his limits. But I know I outspeed a Rhyperior, so I go for a Drain Punch. Unfortunately, he withdraws and goes into Aegis Slash, which is a problem. But yeah, didn't predict that. So I should have probably predicted that. It would have been a great play right there, but nah. Too risky, way too risky. So he withdraws Aegis Slash immediately and goes into Gallade, probably predicting me to switch out at this rate, which I do end up doing. So he has his Gallade on the field, and I go into Drapion. This is a bit of an issue, but thankfully I did set up my EVs on Drapion in such a way where I knew I could survive a close combat with a Swords Dance boost. So I do take the close combat. He doesn't go for Swords Dance. I don't think he has it, actually. I'm not 100% sure. So I end up going for Taunt to stop him from going for a Swords Dance and to get him a major sweep. And unfortunately, that is going to be the end of Oddjob. He's just going to finish me off with a close combat the next turn, and he's down 2 defense boosts. So, kind of a shame, but Oddjob goes down. That's one of my team members down and one of his team members down. I go out to Y2K because I'm thinking, if I can burn this guy and I don't burn him, I can burn whatever else comes in. And he brings in the Aegis Slash, so I go for the Will-O-Wisp, and I land it, and I'm very proud of myself at this point. I burned the Aegis Slash. This is going to be a huge game changer, except for the fact that this Aegis Slash is not the Aegis Slash I predicted it to be. I go out in Typhlosion, predicting him to switch out because he can't do anything with this Aegis Slash, and he goes for Shadow Ball. This is a special Aegis Slash, and that just crushed my dreams right then and there. I should have predicted that it was a special Aegis Slash, and I knew I was doomed at this point. So he goes for a King Shield, I go for an Eruption, not realizing I misclicked. I go back to cancel it, and Showdown didn't pick it up because it was lag. Either way, there wasn't really much I could have done there. I could have probably gone out into Conkeldurr, but he would have finished me off the next turn regardless, so it doesn't matter. So I go out the next turn into Rotom-Mow, and he goes out into Rhyperior. So he does comment that, no, I misclicked, and he says, Arg, same with the switch. And I'm not sure what he meant, if by my switch or his switch, but regardless, I trick over my Choice Scarf to his Rhyperior and steal his non-existent item because I already knocked it off. And he goes out into Crobat, so now I have an itemless Y2K, and he has a Choice Scarf Rhyperior. So I just go for a Leaf Storm, playing it safe. I probably shouldn't have played that safe, I should have gone for a Volt Switch, but he's going to go for a Roost, and I'm just going to Volt Switch on this turn, of course, because that totally makes sense. So it does basically nothing because my special attack is down so much from that Leaf Storm. So he's got an 84% Crobat on the field. I go out into Amistar, and I'm thinking, okay, if I can do something with this Amistar, now's the time to do it. He goes for a Taunt, predicting me to set up even more hazards on him, which is not something I really like to do with Amistar. I don't make him a complete suicide lead, hence why I didn't lead with him. I go for Surf. So I go for Surf, he goes for a Roost the next turn, and I'm just trying to get chip damage on him. I predict his Roost and end up going for Earth Power, which does a lot of damage, but unfortunately he can just regain health the next turn with another Roost. But instead he ends up going for Roost, he goes for a U-turn, and that again lowers my speed. I can't talk. Raises my speed and lowers my defense. I had to drink there. So I go for a Surf, knowing I can outspeed at this turn and the next turn. So Gallade is on the field, and I'm thinking maybe I can outspeed if he's Adamant instead of Jolly. But he's Jolly, as I find out after he immediately destroys me. And I go back out into Edward. So at this rate, I'm really afraid of this thing because he just one-shot my Amistar. I go back out into Edward, and he goes into Aegis Slash as I go for a Bullet Punch. I should have had knockoff on 3 of my team members. I know it's overused, but it's overused for a reason. It's a really good item, especially against Aegis Slash. It was incredibly good. The problem was the King Shield, so I send in Reptar as death fodder, and he knocks him out with Shadow Ball. So we have a Bird Aegis Slash still in the field, Special Aegis Slash. This thing is still horrifying beyond belief. And of course he does have the leftovers on that Aegis Slash, so he's going to keep on gaining health. I switch in Conkeldurr because I know this guy isn't going to have a Swords Dance, considering that he's special. So he goes for a King Shield. Predicting the King Shield, I go for a Drain Punch, so I don't get the attack drop. But unfortunately, it's going to be in vain, because what's going to happen is I'm going to get hurt by poison, and he's going to withdraw Aegis Slash and go back out into his Rhyperior at this point. I should have Drain Punched predicting that, but I predicted him to stay in, so I go for a knockoff. I knock off the Choice Scarf off the Rhyperior, which sucks for me, and Muscle Man goes down. So at this rate, I only have 2 team members, and he has 5, so I'm fearing the 5-0. That's going to look horrible on my team's record, but thankfully that's not how it ends. So here's what happens. I go out into Rotom Mow, and he goes out into Crobat. He takes Stealth Rock damage because he doesn't have Defog on this thing, and I'm thinking, what can I do to deal with the rest of his team? So I just go for Leaf Storm. Just straight away, Leaf Storm. I don't care if it's Aegis Slash or Crobat. I'm going for Leaf Storm, and I go for the Leaf Storm, and it brings him down, and I have to sneeze. Shoot. Come on. Sneeze. Sneeze. I'm not gonna... Sorry. So I go for the Leaf Storm, and he draws out... Jeez. So he's in with Crobat. I pull out Y2K, and I go back out into Scizor, because I know I can do at least a bit to this Crobat, regardless of a Swords Dance. So I go for a Bullet Punch. Doesn't do nearly as much as I was hoping for. And he goes for a Taunt, predicting me to go for a Swords Dance and set up like mad and sweep him. I assume, anyway. Unfortunately, I really should have put Swords Dance on Edward, because Edward is really good with Swords Dance. I don't know what I was thinking with the Flying Stab, because there's not much weak on his team that's weak to flying, but I thought it was good in the moment. So anyway, I go for another Bullet Punch, he goes for a Roost. I go for another Bullet Punch, he goes for another Roost. And it looks like an endless cycle at this point. So what's going to happen, I'm just going to keep going for Bullet Punches, and he's just going to go for Brave Bird this turn, knowing it's going to do basically nothing. He's back down into the yellow, and I am up at the green. My taunt ends, so I'm thinking at this point he's either going to taunt me again, or he's going to U-turn out, and I go for another Bullet Punch, and I get a crit, which is fantastic. So now it's a 4-0 if I can survive. So he, thankfully... He says, sorry, I went for the differential, but thankfully, I didn't end up killing it. I bring his Rhyperior down, and I live the Fire Punch with 10% remaining, which is fantastic. I go for another Bullet Punch the next turn, and at this point, Edward is finally pulling off some revenge slaughtering. He's in there, he's going for Bullet Punches, he just knocked out Rhyperior. Gallade comes in and Shadow Sneaks me. And that is going to be the game. I know Y2K is still around, but there's nothing that he can do at this point. And that is going to be the game. So a good game from Heracroshot and a Texas Savage Tauros. Very, very scary team. And everybody else in this league should really be afraid of this team, because he has won. At this point in the season anyway, he had beaten both of the people before him. By quite a substantial amount, and so he's going to do really well. But it was a much closer game at the end than I expected it to be. Regardless, great game from Heracroshot, and thank you guys for watching. If you are looking forward to week 3, make sure to click that like button down below, and I will see you guys then for my battle against the Liverpool FC. See you guys then.